application to take a look at all the different settings that are configured for this virtual machine. You need to be aware, however, that these are the specific devices, the virtual hardware devices that you've assigned to this VM. Not all of them may be necessary. A server, for example, may not need a floppy disk drive, as one example. It may not need a DVD drive in some cases. But most of these you're probably going to require for a server, or you might need to add some, for example, if you need to, by clicking the Add button here to add in additional devices. These devices just simply make them available for that virtual machine's operating system once the operating system is complete. We'll come back to this here in just a second, because really at this point what I want to do is have you understand really the difference between a virtual machine and a VApp. Now, I told you that I've created two VMs here, and I've also created this one VApp. Inside of this VApp are two virtual machines that are associated with the VApp. Now, I want you to kind of, in your mind, think about what an application is whenever you've got one that's distributed across multiple virtual machines. So let's think of our classic N-tier model. In the classic N-tier model, we have a web services layer. That would be at the top. That's what essentially provides the user interface for people when they need to work with this application. It may also have a middle tier layer, so some sort of mid-tier application. That's your business logic services in the middle. And then on the lower tier would be a database. Commonly in the classic N-tier model, those three functions are provided by three different servers. Now I only have two servers here, but maybe we can assume that one is a web server and the other one is a database server. In this VApp scenario, the reason for creating a VApp is so that all of the bits and pieces that are attributed to this application, web server, application server, database server, all of them operate as a group, which is essentially the VApp. So these virtual machines here operate as a group that is this app called my VApp. Now the VApp is stopped right now. If I wanted to, I could power on the VApp and it would go on about powering on the individual virtual machines. What I want to show you, however, is with this VApp how you would actually configure some of the settings associated with that VApp. Now we haven't gotten into resource configuration yet. I told you we're going to just punt on this for the time being until a little bit later on when we worry about how we're going to assign virtual resources. But you can see that for the VApp there are some properties that you can set, an IP allocation policy, and then some advanced settings as well. Now I've populated the advanced settings here just to give you some idea of what you might put in here. Classic N-tier app, right? I've got a product URL and then an application URL that I've just populated in here to give you an idea of what that looks like. I showed you the properties screen that didn't have any information in it because those properties haven't been set down here for what sorts of custom properties may be attributed to this VApp. I can create categories and labels and keys associated with these properties if I want. The idea being that in complex VApps with lots of machines, lots of virtual machines that consolidate together to create an application, I might need this information to keep all of my VMs straight. Creating that here will ultimately populate the things up here in properties. The IP allocation policy also showed fixed, which means that the virtual machine's IP addresses are going to be manually configured. There's no automatic allocation. If I wanted to, I could come over here under IP allocation and configure DHCP as my allocation scheme, or even the OVF environment if I had OVF virtual machines that were coming in from the outside, essentially as one big package that gets deployed on my system. I can also choose if I want IPv4 or 6 or both. So these provide some kind of basic settings for what VApps are. You should at this point be recognizing that a VApp, there's really not much here. So I can consolidate my virtual machines together into a VApp. I can, under the start order section here, group them into different groupings and then change their startup and shutdown actions. Perhaps if I want them to power on, I can set up the sequence to allow 2 minutes to elapse between powering on individual groups. If I have, again, the N-tier application, I may want the database to come up first and then the middleware and then the web server last. So this gives me the power to do that. But really, this is all that there is associated with the VApp. The real power with VApp come whenever you actually get into attributing and assigning resources to them. You may have a group within your organization that needs a certain amount of CPU resources, and you want to limit the entirety of their application to those levels of resources. But that's kind of really why you would create a VApp. When you have servers and services that need to operate together as a group,